Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, today we're reaching the last day of our December festival here in home of ISKCON in Sweden. And this will be the last class, of course, everyone's giving, the last class I'm giving. It's really just a continuation from breakfast prashada in the room there, because the whole time during prashada, V.P. Govinda Maharaj was there, and we just start talking about Prabhupada and start interchanging our remembrances and different talks about Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. You see, what we're doing here is the same thing that's been going on in ISKCON from the very beginning days. Always, it all comes down to talking about Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada's activities, and his interactions with his disciples, and how he dealt with them, how he always assisted them, encouraged them in devotional service in so many different ways, from completely smashing them in their false egos day after day to cuddling them, and encouraging them in that way. So any way that it would take, Srila Prabhupada was always encouraging us by how he dealt with us personally, and by how he dealt with every situation. He was showing us how to do so many things. This morning, Maharaj, he was talking about Bhagavan Prabhu when he went to India, and I was talking about that at Prashad, how from my vision, what I saw, what I remembered, Maharaj was saying as well. India was always so difficult for the devotees. Now India is so very different. Imagine I lived 16 months in Govardhan, which is the most, out of everywhere ISKCON devotees go, Govardhan is the most still primitive place, the most village-like place. Vrindavan is a big city now. You can get anything you want. You have your high-speed internet, and everything's available, telephone service. But Govardhan, still things are a little difficult. I have like your basic dial-up service. Varies between 50 and 120. What's it called? KBS. It's like very, very slow. There's no question of watching Mayapur TV or YouTube videos. People will send me videos and say, you have to watch this video. And I say, no, I don't have to, I can't. The internet doesn't do that for me here. But, and if you want to copy something, like, you can get my tickets on the internet and all, but then to print out your e-ticket, you have to drive about 3 kilometers to the only one shop in all of Govardhan that has a copy machine, 5 rupees a copy, which is Mathura, it's 1 rupee a copy, so they're gouging everyone, taking 5 rupees for 1 piece of paper. It's Chaitanya computers. Thanks to the Gaudiya Math Temple, don't ever go there, they gouge you 10 cents for a piece of paper. So that's Govardhan. So there are still things. I was there for over a year, so everything's very livable. You buy your, now, you don't buy a bottle of water if you live in India. You buy an RO filter, reverse osmosis water filter, which everyone has them all over now. So. But in the day, it was just very, very difficult. As everyone, Maharaj say, Yadabar Prabhu, when he's showing his videos, despite the fact that everyone was ill, you still somehow or other you managed to go to the programs. But outside of that, you were just surviving, which was really nice, because in India, and it's still kind of like that, there's no question of sense gratification. from a Western point of view, you just want to survive the day. You just want to remain healthy and not get cheated and accomplish one thing. I always say in India, when people come and they, if you're not used to being there, you get very frustrated at how long it can take to do something. So my frame of mind is always, if you get one thing done in a day, that was a good day. You actually accomplished something in that day. So that was really good if you set out and got your SIM card for your phone. That's an accomplishment that you did that day, so you're happy. So Maharaj was talking about Bhagavan going, he became the GBC in India. India used to, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was one of the best and the longest GBC in India. Otherwise we used to say, like, India kind of, spit out GBCs one after another. Just like Vrindavan, 35 presidents in 35 years. Hawaii, like 40 presidents in 35 years. So certain places, they just have a tendency to just chew you up and discard you. So I was with Prabhupada for a long time. So I was with him in India in 72, 73, 74, and 75. So when Bhagavan came there, I believe it was 1975, was the GBC. And this is still the ongoing battle about Juhu that was going on in the property in Juhu and getting the deed and being able to start construction. It took years and years. That's the whole story of its own. But everyone in India at that time, basically looked very similar. As Westerners, we were all white. And I was saying to Maharaj, but gradually as you stayed in India, everything, became grayish. Your cloth, your white became gray because you never could really wash it properly. Your complexion became gray. Your mental attitude became gray. Everything just got dark. It just beat you up. It just made you. And the only thing that allowed you to continue was Srila Prabhupada's presence in India. And it was something I noticed right away when I became his servant, was how different Prabhupada was in India than in the West. In the West, you had your morning class, the morning walk, whoever was fortunate enough to go on the morning walk. And in the day, it would be small darshan, usually just with the leaders discussing administration, things like that. But for the most part, everyone knew, didn't disturb Srila Prabhupada. It didn't. And it was accepted, and Prabhupada also accepted that. So there was not a lot of, it was very formal. Prabhupada seemed, to me, much more formal outside of India. And when we got to India, I was just shocked how it was like it must have been back in the 60s for the devotees. It seemed like anyone could go in and talk to Prabhupada almost any time. And Srila Prabhupada allowed it. He encouraged it, in fact, for people to come and get his association, because he understood that outside of his association, for his disciples, there wasn't anything that was uplifting. It was just difficult. You struggled. Everything. Just a simple thing, buying your food, getting fruits and vegetables and keeping healthy, not getting dysentery. It always, that was there. I was in India over a year, 3-4 different times. And in that course of a year, I had malaria 3 times. I had jaundice, dysentery, every time you go, and colitis. I was just a mess. I used to just, Prabhupada would say he was heading to India, it would just strike fear into my heart. I think I'm going to die in India, But he gave so much of himself. in India to encourage the devotees, and everyone would come into his room. And it wasn't just like you sit down and he would speak philosophy. He would just talk in a very friendly way, in a way where you just felt he was so much more than your spiritual master. It was very personal. And sometimes he could be very funny, and we would talk about historical things in India in so many different ways. He just made everyone relax, like I described. The first time he rang the bell, he made me relax. So this is what he was always doing, was giving devotees so much mercy that they could stay there in India. But then for those who were doing big things, it was still very, very difficult. And GBC, sometimes they just left. We see in temples sometimes we would get up one morning and where did just disappear. In New Vrindavan, it was one of the hardest places to leave because no one had a vehicle. There was like one vehicle and the main road was like 4 or 5 miles down the road. So you would have to walk down the road in the middle of the night if you wanted to leave the temple. And that wasn't an easy thing to do. But, our Westerners, sometimes that's what would happen, was you just disappear. So in India that would also happen. People would, without Prabhupada's permission, who was wanting them to stay, they would just disappear. So then it was Bhagavan's turn. Now, he was, certain devotees who were talking about Karandar. And I told you yesterday, I was telling you about him, and B.B. Govinda was saying, he said, Karandar, he was a legend. In his own time, he was led by 72. He was a legend in his time. Karandar, that's what it was like. So now Bhagavan had done so many things. He had been in Detroit, developed Detroit, and he went to Paris. And he was GBC, so Prabhupada wanted to bring him to India to help solidify this Juhu project, the most important project in India. And I remember being, at that time Prabhupada was living, there were flats, 3-story flats, and Prabhupada was on the top floor. And I remember Bhagavan arriving on his flight. So from Europe, not that far, like a 9-hour flight, direct flight with one stop. And he came into the room, and Prabhupada always looked effulgent. Prabhupada was nice pressed cloth, saffron cloth, and Prabhupada was effulgent. Came from within. Prabhupada was completely effulgent. But the rest of us, we were just surviving day to day. And I was sitting in the room, and Prabhupada was sitting behind his desk, and Bhagavan came into the room. And he didn't look like anyone else, because he must have just showered or something. He had fresh dhoti, kurta, silk, silk white. All Grahasta always wear this white. And it was bright white. It wasn't gray, it was white. And he was freshly shaven, shaved head, bright eyes, big smile. He was seeing Prabhupada for the first time in maybe several weeks, several months or more. And he just came in and did a Dandavat. And I was sitting there. I never felt good in India. I was less than bubbly and enthusiastic of getting by every day doing my service. And I saw him come in, do Dandavat, and sat up, and I just saw how he looked like an archangel or something, And he said, Prabhupada, I'm here. He said, to serve you. And he said, I want you to know, everything's going to be okay. I'll help with this situation. And I just thought to myself, just wait. You just give it a few days and we'll see how you feel. And that's what went through my head, very pessimistic person that I am, realistic person that I am. I thought, let's see what happens, good luck. I didn't speak with him. Again, he was on a different level. He was much senior to me, much older than me. And I was always around Prabhupada with all these people. I was always just like a little punk, you know. Brahmananda once, I used to annoy Brahmananda. You can imagine Prabhupada was one of his first disciples from 66. And he was Prabhupada's secretary and I was Prabhupada's servant. So although I was younger and, you know, in a way a little bit terrified of everyone, I could also hold my ground when it came to my service. And I remember once Brahmananda said to someone, he said that he's Prabhupada's servant, you know, just like, what can you do? You know, he's just like, has that connection. And I guess I would sometimes utilize that I knew I was Prabhupada's servant despite everything else, all my shortcomings. Because I was a servant, you know, you could do things at times. So that was Brahmananda's take on me was, you know, what can you do with him? You know, he's Prabhupada's servant. So I remember every day, you know, Prabhupada wanted his report from Bhagavan. And each day, you could just see what was going on. You know, and I felt sorry for him. I would usually be there in Prabhupada's room. There was really nowhere else to be. And just, it was like the changing bodies, you know, from the top going back down the other way. It was like his changing body each day. And, I mean, it was no more than a week. And he was just realized you just can't do anything. You can't reason with these people. They, you know, and they're very expert. We were talking in class in Bhagavatam how, you know, materially you just say yes. You know, remember that class the other day when it said when you get all your requests from your friends, your relatives, and, you know, your family business, you just say yes. But then you do what's best for your Krishna consciousness. But the Indians are the most expert at that. Whatever you say, they always agree with you. So you think you've made you know, you've established something, something will happen, and then they just do anything they want. You know, or not do anything at all. You know, the simplest thing, you know, dealing with a tailor. You know, you tell them what you want. You know, I need it in 4 days. You know, you say you need it 2 weeks. You can't go there in 2 weeks and expect to have it. You have to go there every day and say, well, now I need it in 12 days, I need it in 10 days, how's it coming? And after 2 weeks, it's not ready. It's just, anyone knows that deals in India, and it's, you know, it's just how they do things. So I remember that with Bhagavan. That picture's like just embedded in my mind, him arriving that first day with all good intentions to serve Srila Prabhupada. And he tried his best, and that's okay. Prabhupada accepted that. Whatever the result is, it's not important. It's our desire, what we want to do for Srila Prabhupada, to have the desire and to try to carry it out. That's the accomplishment. That's the devotion. So because it was the last day, I said, if anyone had any topics for discussion or questions or comments, we could, because it might take a while. So yes.
Yes, you said that you shared your time with your wife when she was going to leave her body, and that Prabhupada or Krishna sort of helped her to prepare for this.
Yeah, really detach from it.
I would really, that would be very nice to hear if you would like to share.
Well, on one level, she had children, grown-up children, and even a few little grandchildren, boys and sons, and one daughter. And the mother never changes. A mother's always a mother, you know, to their children. It doesn't matter how old your children are. You know, I'm 61. My mother lives outside Philadelphia, New Jersey. When I call her up, I still feel like, you know, I'm 10 years old or something, because she's saying, you know, are you taking care of yourself? And, where are you now? And I'll say, I'm in India. Oh, yeah. Why don't you come somewhere civilized? You know, we'll be okay. Kind of, that's the mood, you know. I stopped her from doing it, from speaking those things. I said, look, are you going to talk like this? I said, I'm just going to hang up the phone. At 60 years old, it doesn't change. She's just my mother, She worries about me. I'll call now. When I call, oh, I'm so happy to hear you, But because she's an Italian woman, I should call every day. Any Italian boy knows you have to call your mother every day, no matter where you are in the world, then they're happy. And I fall far, far short of ever doing that. But anyway, Amekala was very much guardian of women and children wherever we traveled. Because she had been through a lot in her life herself, with all of her children in the Gurukula. Many of them had varying degrees of difficulty. Her oldest Madhava was in Vrindavan from the very beginning when Prabhupada was there. You'll see pictures of him with Prabhupada when they were going around in procession after he left. And so she held a lot within her, a lot of guilt. She always tried to make up for, what she considered mistakes and everything. So it's very hard to move past that. Even after decades, we're stuck with what's happened in our life. But she became very ill, of course, and particularly the last 3 months, even though she was bedridden for almost a year, we didn't know she had lymphatic cancer until she was in bed for a good 9 months. It somehow or other we just got covered over. There was an interesting thing. I said how Krishna took care of her. And it was Devaki Mataji, actually. We were at a Baltic Sea Festival. It was 2008. And during breakfast, after breakfast, Prashadam Devaki Mataji came over and invited us to go to Bangladesh Festival. And when she said it, Amekala said, she just had a flash bulb in her head. And she said, I just dreamt of Prabhupada last night. She said, this was 2008, so 30, almost 40 years. She said, this is only the third time I dreamt of Prabhupada, she said. So really, it was very significant for her. She really felt Prabhupada. So of course, what did Prabhupada say? And she said, Prabhupada said to me that you have to accept all invitations to travel and preach because there's not much time left. So then we just looked, and we're like, so what's that mean? And then Amekala, who was, she was Irish descent, and she was very much into conspiracy theories within politics and everything all around the world. And she had ways she saw things, but first she said, well, maybe there's a war coming soon and we won't be able to travel. And then it was, maybe the economic collapse we were all waiting for it to happen. There was going to be a big economic collapse and we won't be able to travel. And then she looked at me and she said, or maybe we'll be gone. And at the time she was 55, and we just kind of said that, laughed it off. But it was very interesting because it was literally like 6 months before she started to feel the first symptoms of cancer. It started in her hip, so it started to eat away at her hip. So she had a pain, which for 9 months we said it was, like a pulled muscle or something, what do you call it? So that's what we went on as it was just growing. So, but looking back after everything happened, and she left 2 years later, less than 2 years later, she left her body. And it was an amazing instruction that Prabhupada gave her, and we carried it out until she could no longer travel herself. But for the next year and a half, that's what we did. And it was always how I saw things, but it was like a confirmation. Whenever there was an invitation, we'd say, well, we have to go. There was no question of saying no. If you're getting invited to do service, how can you say no? But in the dream, Prabhupada said there's not much time left. So everything just became very clear, because when I look back, I thought, well, Prabhupada didn't say there's not much time left, go to Vrindavan and chant Hare Krishna. No, he said accept all invitations for preaching. And, we took that and did that. But as time went on, in the final months, these attachments, she went, all her children she got to see. And on one hand, you could say, materially it was kind of maybe discouraging or something, that even though it was very obvious she was leaving her body, everything just went on as usual, within people's lives. For me, I just took care of her 24 hours a day. But the others, all living in different places, although she was always trying, again what a mother do, you see things that are a certain way, you want to correct everything. She always wanted to try to make everything what she considered to be proper and correct. And she saw, even in this situation, nothing was changing. So in a sense, it didn't cause any difference outside, but that caused a big difference inside her, because she saw, you know what? I can't control anything. Even it's like I'm lying on my deathbed, which she was, and I have a desire, just do this, it's my dying wish. Still doesn't happen. Which I always used to tell her, you have her children, they grow up and everybody does what they want to do. You can't, they're not little. When they're little, you can control them. But from the time, some very young, but usually in teenagers, they just start to do what they want. And by the time they're 25, it's, don't bother trying to give, say do this, do that. So she was 55, 56, but she was able to finally let it go. And that was an important thing to do, because when you're getting ready to leave your body, you have to let go of all these things. That's what brings you back, is our attachments in the material world. That is your karma. It's not like it's something special. It's because we have attachments. We have things to complete with other living entities. You come back and you work on it in your next life. You're this, you're that, your husband, your wife, your friends, enemies, and you come back and work out previous karmas. So she was letting go of those things. So that was the one aspect of what I saw, was how she accepted it, and she really understood it. I mean, it was a realization. It was a very complete realization that, okay, it's not my business anymore. I got more serious things to deal with. So that's how.
I have a very few questions that can be answered very rapidly. So I would like to know what's the size of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. What was the size?
That's them. They're the imprints.
Yeah. Is it 8 or 9?
I would say about a 9.
All right. What's the height of Srila Prabhupada?
In inches, I don't know metric system. About 5'5".
5'5". Did Srila Prabhupada have any scars on his body that he detected when you massaged him?
Yes.
And where were they?
He had a scar on his forehead.
Is that from the gun story?
Yeah. And then he had a scar here. He showed me once. He had a scar on his thigh.
Was that when he almost put himself on the fire?
Yeah, that's when he set fire to himself. You know that?
Yeah.
No? Sure. I was massaging him one day. I'd just been with him a month or so. And I was rubbing his leg. And he had a scar. It wasn't deep. It wasn't a bad scar. I guess like 1st degree, 2nd. I don't know. It wasn't real bad. But it was there. It was visible. And he said, you see that scar? And he would say, you see that scar? I said, yes. So then he said, I was a little boy. He said, and I was in front of the house, like on the sidewalk in front of the house. And there was, gate fence. He said, and he was playing with matches. So he struck some matches. He said, in his cloth, he had dhoti on it, and just everything went up in flames. He said, just like that. He said, and out of nowhere, he said, a man appeared, and he put out the flames, and he left. Didn't go in, asked nothing. And Prabhupada, when he said it, he sounded as mysterious as he wanted to. He said he just came, he put out the flame, he came from nowhere, put out the flames, and then he left. He said, so that's scars from that time. So these are the sweet things with Prabhupada. He would tell you about different things in his life.
I wonder also, when I had the great fortune to spend some time in Sri Mayapur Dham, when you and Prabhupada was present, say, in Mayapur Dham, because my question is ISKCON and Gaudiya Math have Ekadashi on different days, so I want to know if it was like that in Prabhupada's days, and if there was a reason for that.
It was simpler then. Even like now we have sometimes a different day in India and Europe.
But then I understand.
But it wasn't then. It was always just done on the same day. It wasn't so analyzed as it is now. But what went on in the, I don't really recall. Pujamna or others would be very much aware of who was doing what. But our whole system was very simple. It was just no grains, no beans, no grains. That was
that Gaudiya Math have Ekadashi on one day and ISKCON have the day after. That was just
again,
it's a mystery.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery. It's not, it's not. It's not that big of a deal. You just do it. Prabhupada would say, just follow. We had peanuts and raisins was our main course. Now you hear, peanuts aren't even edible on Ekadasi.
Really?
But that's what we, if you hear from this group, Vaishnava group, you don't eat carrots, you don't eat this, you don't eat that. Carrot halava was, our other main preparation. So we had peanuts and raisins and carrot halava, so you can take them right off the menu, because they're not supposed to be eaten. But Prabhupada's method was simple. It was just to increase our Krishna consciousness. He always advised increasing the chanting and to minimize bodily necessities. But, I always got the feeling Prabhupada didn't want to bog us down with lots of rules and regulations. He wanted us to concentrate on what was the essence of Krishna consciousness, which is Krishna consciousness, which is consciousness of Krishna. That's what he wanted, and he wanted us to give it to others. That's what he wanted more than anything. Okay. Anything else? I have stories to tell, but before we move on, was there anything else anyone wanted to ask? Okay. So, today I was going to tell a few pastimes about what Prabhupada considered Vaishnava activities. We have Vaishnava activities that we perform, and this also started in India. I was telling you yesterday about Prabhupada giving the socks and the shoes, and to be with Prabhupada personally was always very exciting, and it was very difficult at times, but it's having difficulties that allow us also to experience a lot of bliss and a lot of nectar. You don't get one without the other. Just seeking a comfortable lifestyle, you're not going to experience ecstasy in Krishna consciousness. You have to put out. You have to put out perform some austerities. You have to go out of your way to do something. And so being with Prabhupada was like that. It was difficult in many ways, but then it was always ecstasy at every step, at every turn. It was something ecstatic. And part of that was just It was just a day-to-day routine, because it was never routine being with Prabhupada, even though it was very regulated. It was a routine, but within that routine, only so many things were going on, so many different things. So, and at this time in 1975, traveling with Prabhupada, as I mentioned, it was the three of us, Nitai, Paramahamsa, and myself, who were all just about 24 years old. So imagine, that was really young. And we're traveling all around the world with Srila Prabhupada, and we're responsible for doing all the various activities. So amongst ourselves, we were fairly close. Paramahamsa and I were very close, very friendly with each other. And different things would happen. One or all of us would get into trouble for doing something wrong. And being with Prabhupada was just like your parent. You know, he was your father, so he'd call you out. You know, and I never had a father. He died. I was 3 years old, so I never had an experience of having to own up to someone. You know, getting yelled at by someone. And it never happened to me. You know, my mother was the quiet kind. You know, when she was angry, she'd just go quiet. And that's what I learned. So I was always quiet. And now I was in a situation which was very different, because Prabhupada got angry, he would let you know. You know, if you did something wrong, at some point or another, he might just call you into his room. So amongst us, if Prabhupada called you into his room, it was a scary thing, because you had a half-decent idea that you were going to get chastised about something. And personally, I don't think anyone really liked it. I certainly never liked getting chastised by Prabhupada, and I did on a regular basis. Not too many times, but I did. So it was always your godbrother coming up to you and saying, Prabhupada wants to see you. That was basically what you would get, which, you know, as a servant, it meant, first of all, I wasn't even in the right place at the right time. Otherwise, if Prabhupada wants to see me, it should be me that knows that, because I'm the one that answers the bell. So that's the first thing that's wrong. As soon as a godbrother comes up and says, Prabhupada wants to see you, it means I'm not in the right place. So I know already that I'm in trouble. First time it happened was in 1973. Prabhupada stayed in Los Angeles for several weeks. And Prabhupada went to Los Angeles a lot, so I got to know different devotees, because they would come to the servants' quarters and we'd talk, and I'd tell them Prabhupada said this and Prabhupada did this. And in our travels around, people were always asking about Prabhupada. So a few of my godbrothers, they were always saying, why don't you come to Mongol Arti? For those of you that don't know, I never went to Mongol Arti when I was with Srila Prabhupada, because that wasn't my service. It was there in the room. At least that's how I perceived it. That's what I was supposed to do. And he never told me to go to Mongol Arti. But they were saying, why don't you come to Mongol Arti? You know, there was a big temple room, it was this size, and it was packed. When Prabhupada was there, it was packed with devotees from all around the USA. And nice kirtans, they said, we need Dwarkadesha there, and Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, Baladev, or Nitai, they said, and wonderful kirtan leaders, and, you know, why don't you come? So finally, you know, I became convinced and said, okay. So tomorrow morning I'll come to Mongol Arti, because Prabhupada never called me early in the morning during that time. So I went that morning, and I did. It was really nice to be at Mongol Arti, and Bhardaraj was leading the kirtan. He was a big kirtan leader at the time. And all the devotees, they're all in ecstasy, because Prabhupada's right upstairs. You know, he was right above the back of the temple. And so it was like halfway through Mongol Arti, and I get a tap on my shoulder. I'm dancing like everybody else. And I turn around, and it's Prajuna, who was Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor. And he said, Prabhupada wants to see you now. I thought, oh, you know, and that was it. I knew already I was in big trouble. So I I ran out of the kirtan, offered obeisances, ran upstairs, went into Prabhupada's room, offered obeisances, and before I'm even looking at him, he's screaming at me. And he said, "Where were you?" He said, "I've been ringing this bell for hours." And, that was my, foolish thing. I said, "Prabhupada, I'm sorry, I was at Mangalartik." And he looked at me. He said, "You have no business going to Mangalartik." He said, "What if I need something?" He said, "What am I supposed to do?" He said, "I'm here ringing this bell, and you're not here." He said, "I'm ringing and ringing the bell, and no one's answering." He said, "This is your service." He says, "You have no reason to go to Mangalartik." He said, "Your business is you be in that room 24 hours a day." That was my service. So I was in Maya because I went to Mangalartik. Otherwise, you're all in Maya when you don't go. I've been at Mangalartik every morning. I see some of you don't go. You're in Maya. But I was in Maya because I went to Mangalartik, and I thought how amazing it was to serve Prabhupada, that he could just eclipse everything. All other service was eclipsed, and it was you just sit. And that's what I did. So it was just sit in the room. Imagine, I was 22 years old. Your blood's just and you just sit there. You can't go anywhere. I went on a morning walk. I said to him, Prabhupada, I wasn't chanting my rounds. He said, "Why aren't you chanting your rounds?" I said, "Prabhupada, I'm just sitting in my room all day." And that was my excuse for not chanting, that I was just sitting there all day with nothing to do. And Prabhupada didn't even yell at me, didn't chastise me. And he said, I said, "It's very difficult." I said, "Just to sit all day for me." And he looked at me. He said, he said, "Every morning," he said, "I go on the morning walk." He said, "You come with me?" He said, "Then we go to class." He said, "Then we come back and sit here." So he said, "Every day we're going out." He said, "Then we come back and we're sitting in our rooms." He said, "I'm doing." I said, "Prabhupada, you're Haridas Thakur." I said, "But I find it very difficult." And he said, "Well, what are we going to do?" He didn't yell at me. I said the most absurd thing. I said, "I have too much time to chant my rounds." That was my reason for not chanting. And he never made me feel bad. He never ridiculed me, never said, "That's the stupidest thing I ever heard," which it was. But it actually was honest. I was just sitting there and I didn't know what to do with myself. So he said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Call Kurandar." Told you Kurandar, he could fix anything. He said, "Call Kurandar." So I went out, I asked Prabhupada, Kurandar, Prabhupada wants to see you. So we went back up to Prabhupada's room, we go for obeisances. Prabhupada's behind the desk. And Kurandar's just had this look, just ready to do, ready to go to battle for you, Prabhupada. That's how he looked. And yes, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, "So Srutakirti, he's not chanting his 16 rounds. And he says that he's not getting his rounds done because he's just sitting in his room all day." And Prabhupada's just saying it matter of fact. And he's not cracking a little smile. He's just saying it because that's what was going on. So he accepted it. This was my issue. This was my problem. And he said, "What can we do for Srutakirti?" And Kurandar's I was thinking. And then Prabhupada says, "I have an idea." So I'm like, "Yes, Prabhupada." So he's looking at Kurandar. He said, every morning, every night, early morning, he said, "I'm sitting here, I'm translating Srimad Bhagavatam on this dictaphone machine." He said, "And it's transcribed." And he said, "So he said, "Can you get another dictaphone machine?" "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "Okay." He said, he said, "You can put the dictaphone machine in the other." He had 2 sitting rooms. One he used, the other not so much. He just took massage in there sometimes, and that's where he would record these bhajans that you see him, and you get to hear as much as you want. So he said, "You can put the dictaphone on that desk in there." He said, "And I'll begin translating Chaitanya Charitamrita on that machine." And then he looked at me and he said, "Srutakirti," he said, "you know how to type?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "So in the morning," he said, after class, he said, "you can come in and get the tape, and then you can transcribe it on the typewriter." He said, "And then you'll have some service to do." He said, "Is that all right?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "So then you'll have something to do?" He said, "So then you'll get your rounds chanted." I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He was just going along, and at the time, of course, I was always bewildered. And when I look back, I think this is the most absurd thing that Prabhupada did. But it was the sweetest thing that he did, because he just encouraged me on what I required, not what he thought I required or what he decided my issue was. He dealt with me exactly as I presented my problem to him. And he just dealt with it like, "This is your problem, so we'll solve it according to your, necessity." So he said, "So is that okay?" And I was very excited. I said, "Yes, very good." And he looked at Karanda, "Okay?" "Yes, I'll get the dictaphone machine right away." So we got the dictaphone machine that day, and the next morning, I got up early in the morning and I'm already chanting. I'm thinking, because I have something to do. So you have to get your rounds done. The other way, I didn't have anything to do, so there was nothing pressure. I had no pressure to chant. So somehow I slipped into not chanting all my rounds. But now I felt like, I've got all these things to do. I have to chant my rounds. So I started chanting and morning walk, and I'm chanting. By the time the walk was over, I was finished 16 rounds. And just everything was the same, except my mentality had changed. And I went, and he recorded a little bit. It wasn't like a full. They had these, tapes in it wasn't a cassette. It was reel to reel, but they were in these little package things. So I got it, and I went to my room, and I knew how to type and everything. So I'm typing away. I have the little headphones, and I could understand Prabhupada. I was with him so long, and I was listening, typing. So then, of course, the next morning comes, and I'm fired up, enthusiastic, and chanting. But I went to the machine, and there was no tape in there. But it was all right. I was chanting my rounds, and I thought, that's okay. So the next day, there was no tape in there. We didn't record. He was doing Bhagavatam, which was being transcribed by one of the Matajis. And but it didn't matter to me. It's like he cared. And he resolved it. And he went through all of that just because I needed help. And the fact that he did that was, I still to this day, I think it was just the most wonderful thing. And so funny how he just dealt with me and encouraged me, even though it was completely ridiculous. I had nothing to complain about. And there's no reason not to complete rounds, but he just accepted it, and he resolved it. And he started Chaitanya Charitamrita because I wasn't chanting my rounds. So you all have Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srutakirti wasn't chanting. So that was very sweet. So now this next time, this is in Juhu. We're talking about Juhu, India, right? It was a whole different situation. So now he has the 3 of us. We're all just kids, all devotees for 4 years or so. And we're like a group, we're all kind of in the same mold. So Prabhupada stayed in Juhu for a while. So it was a difficult place to stay in India. And of course, Juhu, Bombay, the weather is always very tropical. A little hot side or on the humid side. And we were all, Westerners, Americans. And in Juhu, Palika was cooking for Prabhupada. So now things are the other way. Now I'm looking for the opportunity. You can just relax. Being around Prabhupada was just very intense because it was Krishna conscious all the time. When you were with him, you were just enveloped in his Krishna consciousness. So for those of you who aren't yet pure devotees, engaged 24 hours a day, sometimes you look for outlets and different things to do. So our outlet was, Palika was cooking and she would serve Prabhupada his lunch. She was a lady and she would serve Prabhupada his lunch. And right after the massage, I was free for like an hour because Prabhupada would eat lunch and then he would take rest. And then I had to be there for when he got up. So the three of us started to go to the beach every day at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Juhu, which is only something someone crazy would do because it's very, very hot. And the beach, although Juhu Beach is a nice beach, the water is not all that attractive. No one goes in it, and for so many reasons and things. But us being Westerners, we had this idea about going to the beach. So it was only a block away from the temple. So we would walk to the beach, we put down our gumshoes and lie out there. And I'm sure everybody just must have, the few people walking by in the noonday sun thought, what are these crazy people? But we go and we splash around in the water and come back out because we just wanted to get away for a minute. We just wanted to do something fun. So that was our idea of fun at the time. And it was fun, and we did it together as a group. So that went on for some days, and then first one, Nitai dropped out. He said, I have, Prabhupada's doing all this translating work, I'm not getting enough done. He said, I can't do this anymore. So then Paramahamsa and I were going. And after a few days, he said the same thing. He said, I have to type all these letters each day. This is what you did. 20 letters a day, 25 letters a day. You'd have to take dictation, type them out, put them on Prabhupada's desk, among everything else. So he said, I can't do it. Probably they also just didn't like being out at Juhu Beach in the heat, in the sun. And I was stubborn, so I thought, I kept going by myself. I'm going to the beach. And then one day I come back from the beach and I went into, we had our quarters next to Prabhupada's. Prabhupada had a sitting room, a bedroom, and then we had another room. So I went in, as soon as I got in, Paramahamsa said, Srutakirti said, Prabhupada wants to see you. And he's really mad. He said he knows you're going to the beach by yourself, and he's really upset that you're going alone. And I'm like, oh man, Krishna, He said he wants to see you right away. So I went into the room, Prabhupada's sitting room, he was there. So that's what happened. Of course, he had gotten up, he rang his bell, and Srutakirti didn't answer the bell. The bell answered. Paramahamsa answered the bell. So then they had their conversation. Like any nice friend, he told Prabhupada what I was doing and got me in trouble. Because this is what we did to each other. We enjoyed telling on each other. This was part of our fun because that meant you were getting in trouble, which meant I'm not getting in trouble. So you were very relieved that Prabhupada was taking it out on someone else instead of you. So there was almost a pleasure just knowing that Prabhupada's going to give it to you, today's your turn. So I went in the room, I offered obeisances, and it was just a cushion on the floor. Prabhupada's sitting on his asana on the floor with a desk in front of him, a pillow behind him. So I came in very close, offered obeisance. I sat right next to him practically, just like the sun, I just came up. It wasn't like in front, it was just there. And and of course I was and anxiety. And I said, Prabhupada, I said, you wanted to see me? And he looked at me, he said, no. I said, Paramahamsa, now I'm trying to be as vague as I can, because I thought, all right, it's a good start. And I said, Paramahamsa said you wanted to see me. And Prabhupada was just playing with me. And he goes, no. I said, he said, so then I had to get had to continue on, because now he's not yelling at me, so I'm kind of like, I said, he said that you were angry with me because I was going to the beach by myself, to, the ocean. He said, oh, you're going to the ocean? I said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, what are you doing? I said, we were having lunch. I said, so then I tried, I said, we were all going, and they could go, and I kept going, and I said I was going there, for a swim each day. He said, oh, you're swimming. I said, yes, Prabhupada. I said, I'm going to have it. He said, oh, swimming is a Vaishnava activity. I said, so it's okay? He said, yes, it's okay. I said, okay. Thank you, Prabhupada. I offered obeisances on that. And I never went to the beach again. That was it. But I found out swimming was a Vaishnava activity. So then these were some of the inside things that went on when you're traveling around the world with your spiritual master, Father, Eternal Father, and he was like our father, materially he was our father. He provided us with everything. He checked what we were doing. He was our temple president. He was our treasurer, temple commander. He was everything, all in person. And he did all these different things. He kept on top of us personally, because everything's personal. This is how everything should go on within our society. Very personal. And being a caregiver. Prabhupada was wonderful taking care. So we traveled together for some time. And Paramahamsa and I, we were very close, and we were both, you can see my mentality, and Paramahamsa was very similar nature, even more so than me. If you want to say I'm easygoing, you can't even imagine. I communicate with him. He lives near Mount Shasta. He's married now, and his next door neighbor's like 5 miles away, and he's kind of a reclusive person, but very, very wonderful, very sweet. And we had this funny relationship. I won't go into details, but I'll tell you, like we would, at Kirtan, Kirtan's, when Prabhupada, you see how wonderful sitting in Kirtan always is. When Prabhupada was present, Kirtan was, of course, very ecstatic. And usually the room would be filled with hundreds of devotees who were just getting to see him for a day or two, hadn't seen him in months, and all that built-up emotion would just flow out, immediately as soon as Kirtan began. And the devotees, generally no one ever sat down. Everyone was standing, dancing, running back and at that time there was a running back and forth. It was, that would go on. And jumping up and down. And devotees were very animated. And you could see the ecstasy. Some devotees, you see ecstatic symptoms on their faces at different levels. And so anyway, Paramahamsa and I, being who we were, we used to kind of watch the devotees a lot during the kirtan. And he would often play mridanga, and I would play kartals, and we'd be on either Prabhupada's side. But we were with Prabhupada every day doing these kirtans all around the world. So I guess our experience, sometimes because what we did was we used to look at people and try to find who looked the most ecstatic in their facial expressions and things. So, we would kind of give a little, look at that devotee, he's like really far out. Some devotees are really far out. And then we would kind of just laugh a little bit. So anyway, that was our relationship. So we were in Mexico City, and I'm giving Prabhupada a massage out on the sun, in the sun deck. It was sunny, beautiful weather, and I'm massaging Prabhupada's back. I'm behind him with gumshoe on, and Paramahamsa came from Prabhupada's quarters, through Prabhupada's quarters, came in the room. So he approached Prabhupada. So I'm behind Prabhupada, and Paramahamsa's out in the front. And he was big. Paramahamsa was a big boy, like 6 foot, and pretty strong looking. But very just bouncy. So he came in and he just like plopped down, did a Dandavad. It was very nice. And then he sat up. And he had this face, we say like a cherub, was kind of round and angelic looking. He was very innocent looking. Pictures of him in my book. And I'm behind Prabhupada and I'm massaging him. So Paramahamsa sits up and he just looked at me. So all he did was look at me with a smile on my face, with a smile on his face. And when he looked at me, I don't know what happened, but I just started laughing because he just was so just bizarre character to me. He was just so funny. And he just looked funny. And although I'm massaging Prabhupada, I kind of let my guard down and I start laughing out loud. And when I started laughing, Paramahamsa looking at me, what was his reaction? He starts laughing. So there was something that happened. I don't know what happened, but he just starts laughing. Now he's sitting right in front of Prabhupada. So we're both laughing like a couple of silly children, And it just escalated. And I'm rubbing Prabhupada and I'm just shaking because my whole body is going into these little laughing fits. And I'm just like shaking and I'm trying to and Paramahamsa's laughing and I'm laughing. And I'm rubbing and I'm trying to, and you hear Prabhupada, "What's so funny?" And then that was it. All the laughing stopped immediately. And I'm rubbing now, I'm rubbing real serious, and I'm looking and I'm trying to egg him on to say something. Like he was the big sannyasi secretary. He's younger than I was. He's probably the youngest sannyasi that was ever given sannyas. But he's a sannyasi, and I'm hoping, he'll say something. And I'm massaging Prabhupada, and he's just like this, completely nothing, and I'm massaging. So he didn't say anything, so I now have to say something, and I'm still massaging Prabhupada, and I said, "Well, Prabhupada, I said sometimes I see Paramahamsa," I said, and he just, I don't know, I said, it just makes me laugh. And Prabhupada said, he said, "Laughing is a Vaishnava activity." So we're okay. Again, we're okay. And then Prabhupada starts talking. Paramahamsa's there with his pad and paper and everything, and I'm massaging. And Prabhupada goes, he said, "When I was a child," he said, "I would go with my father. Many times my father would go into town, I would go with him, and he'd go to different places." He said, "My father, he was very generous and very kind with the sadhus." He said, whenever Paramahamsa would come to the house, he said, sometimes this was the process. Sannyasis would knock on their door, and hold their little cloth, and they would just beg something. He said, whenever Paramahamsa would come, he said, my father would give them something, and of course then they offer blessings. And we know Prabhupada's father, what he said was, I just please, that my son become a pure servant of Srimati Radharani. He never asked for anything material, just that you please bless my son. He becomes a pure servant of Srimati Radharani. He said, so we would go to places sometimes, and my father, he would make offerings to these Paramahamsas. And we're just sitting, listening. just talking. And then he said, sometimes, he said, we would go along the Ganga. He said, in there, he said, of course, there's many Paramahamsas who just sit and meditate all the time. He said, and my father, he would give them ganja. And like now we're like, our ear to mouth. He said his father would give these Paramahamsas marijuana. And we're like, what is Prabhupada talking about? I've never heard this one before. So we were very interested to hear about this. And Prabhupada's going, yes. He said, sometimes Paramahamsas, they'll smoke, Prabhupada said, smoke a little ganja to help control the senses. And we're thinking, Paramahamsas are just looking at each other, we're completely bewildered. And Prabhupada said, yes. And then he pointed to Paramahamsa Swami. He said, but not you, Paramahamsa. And Prabhupada starts laughing and laughing at his joke. He's laughing and he's slapping his knee. He's laughing and tears are coming down his eyes. And we're just startled. But Prabhupada was laughing. And what he did was he just took our whole situation and turned it around on us. Because he told this story, and he kept saying Paramahamsas. Prabhupada never uses that word in terms of any of these individuals who were coming, these so-called sadhus. He never said Paramahamsas. But sitting in front of him was Paramahamsa. So Prabhupada kept punching that, yes, he would do this and give it a Paramahamsa, and then he would give him ganja and elro. He said, but not you, Paramahamsa. So of course, Paramahamsa, he became a devotee. He was like 17 years old. Had never been out with a girl, never on a date, was celibate. But when he came, he had one bad habit, smoking marijuana. So that was like his. So Prabhupada, in one little story, he just did so many things at the same time. And he showed us, I'll show you laughing. You want to laugh? I'll show you how to laugh and why to laugh. Because he just completely bewildered us with his story about marijuana, which everybody, in the West, we were all marijuana smoking, if nothing else. But so Prabhupada, let us know that was not within our line, this controlling the senses. We were just thinking, wow, this is great. This is my kind of Krishna consciousness. Can control my senses. I have a reason to do this. A little bit. Putting a little flap in your bead back in the butt. Just before you chant your 16 rounds. So Prabhupada was very amazing. He was so wonderful. And he laughed and laughed and laughed. Where we were laughing at nothing, I couldn't come up with a reason why I was laughing, but Prabhupada showed he had a good reason why he was laughing, because he made us look so foolish. And but that was one of the most amazing things. And I never even told that. I used to tell, I've been telling stories since I was with Prabhupada about Prabhupada, but I didn't tell that one for like 30 years because it just bewildered me so much. And then I went and saw Paramahamsa some years ago, and he was talking about it. We were talking together and laughing and laughing and laughing, and then I just realized how funny Prabhupada was and how amazing, and how he just could play with us and manipulate his little funny children, Prabhupada enjoyed this. So everyone understands the point of that story? No one confused, I hope. It's not a permission to control your senses through any type of intoxication at all. It's just, he was just showing us how intoxicated we already were, and not to engage in it in the future. He said, not you, Paramahamsa. So these things are going on. The Prabhupada gave us a very specific process that we followed. That was, this is what was so wonderful to be with Prabhupada, because he was very personal, and he was, he had say anything. He had a wonderful sense of humor. He knew how to give instructions in every way possible, as he did there. And he just made you more, and everything he did, you became more attached. To try, as he was saying this morning, we just have this debt to the spiritual master. It's a debt you can never repay, the debt to your spiritual master. And everyone here, you're all connected to Srila Prabhupada. You all have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. His father, his grandfather, his founder Acharya, they say the preeminent Shiksha Guru. It means you have a personal relationship to develop more and more. And the more you do, the more happy you'll become and the more fixed up you'll feel in Krishna consciousness. I had a devotee just sent me a letter saying we'd been in a seminar, and he's a grand disciple of Prabhupada, but he said over the years, more and more, he said he can see that he just needs to try to serve Prabhupada's mission. And this was his conclusion after sitting down and seeing how wonderful Prabhupada was, and all he wants me to do is somehow or other help him by doing some service in his mission. So this is personal. This is very personal. It's a person we're serving. It's not some corporate organization. It's personal. Everything is personal. And that was the point that Aki Mataji was making early on, is nothing can interfere with that. No company, corporate thing, structure, temple buildings, nothing can interfere with the personal relationship we have with our spiritual master. As Prabhupada used to say when people were struggling, he would say, you can do this and this, and if that doesn't work, he said, then you can stay with me. He would just say, then you can stay with me. Because he knew if you did that, you would become inspired to do something. He was saying, if you can't take instructions from this person, he said, then I'll give you instructions personally. So whatever it took, Srila Prabhupada was prepared to do it, to keep you connected. So nothing can interfere with that. No one can interfere. So today is the last day. You have a few minutes, I'm sure. Anyone have any questions or comments?
I just want to say, I read your book, I just want to say the appreciation, because in meeting Prabhupada and reading Prabhupada's books, reading your book and other disciples, it gives a person like a person.
Yes.
It's very, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, everything is Srila Prabhupada's mercy, it really is. This is what Maharaj was chanting and the kirtan this morning. It's all we have. It's all we can do is chant the holy name, serve the Vaishnavas, serve the Guru and serve Vaishnava, and get the mercy in that way. So the more we can do that and assist one another, then the more we benefit. The closer we get to Krishna, Krishna will become pleased. This is how Krishna becomes pleased, seeing us serving the devotees. And Prabhupada would say, I'm servant of the servant. He said, I am servant of all devotees. He said, I am servant. And that's what you do. You're serving them. You're giving them the greatest service by helping them develop Krishna consciousness.
For us, instead of the relation who unfortunately we didn't have the opportunity to have a darshan of Srila Prabhupada, I heard some time to time, and even in my case, that Srila Prabhupada came to through the dream and gave a very
Specific
instruction. So
that's very nice. Yes, I had someone tell me a story yesterday. Told me about a dream they had, and I
sometimes
also.
it's really difficult instruction. So what to do? Because I'm thinking, is it my crazy mind which made it, or is it really? This is very clear, very nice, and do this.
Well, Prabhupada spoke about dreams, and he always said we can accept any instruction in a dream. He said as long as it's in accordance with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, he said you can take that. It's, why not? I told you, different dreams I've sometimes, I feel very strongly, so much so, as soon as Prabhupada left, I was awake, with the strongest emotional feeling, not like waking up from some slumber, dreamy thing, but it was just like it was right in the room, and you wake up startled, but filled with emotion. And instructions, like Mekala had that instruction, it was very wonderful. And looking back again, it was wonderful to see. And that's why you can understand it as Prabhupada's presence and his instruction, because his instruction is the same as he was saying, you just do your service. She took that very strongly as her service, just to assist me traveling around. And she was very expert at doing so much, but remaining in the background at the same time. And she pushed on me, because she would sit down and she would be in ecstasy, and she would see all the devotees feeling so close to Prabhupada. And sometimes she'd say, what are you going to, what class? And I'd always say, I don't know what I'm going to, what stories are you going to say? I don't know, And she'd say, she had a group of stories, because they were the most juicy. And she loved to see the devotees laughing, like these stories today make everybody. And she loved to see them crying. She liked to see them feel Prabhupada. This was because she felt Prabhupada, and she wanted to see everybody else feel Srila Prabhupada. And Radhanath Swami said, I saw, because one of the first places we went together was Chaupati. I stayed there for a week and gave class every day. After she left, Radhanath Swami was there for her leaving, and we talked a lot. And he said, she was your biggest fan. He said she would just sit there glued as you were talking, and she just loved hearing about Prabhupada so much. So that's what a devotee, when they feel it, they want to share. They want to share that. So that's available. She understood, I understand. Go to Chaupati, thousands of devotees. None of them are Prabhupada's direct disciples, but they're all feeling Prabhupada's presence. We all have that. We can experience that. You're here. You can't be here without Prabhupada's permission. Like they say, how do we get to Vrindavan? What's our ticket to Vrindavan? There's only one way you can get into Vrindavan. Radharani's mercy. They say it doesn't matter, you can buy your business class, first class, something. But unless Srimati Radharani lets you can't enter Vrindavan. So ISKCON is like that. Without Prabhupada's permission, you can't be doing anything in ISKCON. So you should already understand, you have Prabhupada's permission, you have his encouragement to be serving within his society. This is his society. It's like Vrindavan belongs to Srimati Radharani. She decides, you come or you go, you can stay. So ISKCON is Prabhupada's society. So we have to always remember that. It's not just something going to grow bigger, bigger, bigger. You always have to remember the center. Center is always the same, no matter how big it may expand. Still the center is Srila Prabhupada. Everything's expanding from that, which he said to me in one dream. He said, we've started this branch of the Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. I asked him, I said, what is this ISKCON? He said, he has started this branch. We're connected to the Sampradaya through Srila Prabhupada. So everything else that happened, it's through him. It's just going through him. So we want to remain connected by following him. And then we can be happy. That's the only way to be happy for us. Prabhupada once in a morning walk in Australia, he said, the devotee, he's simple or he's crooked? You don't know what crooked is, right? Yeah, crooked. He said, so the devotee, he's simple or he's crooked? So immediately everybody's, trick question. Prabhupada with his trick questions is just thinking, Who knows? How many think the devotee is simple? Almost half. How many think he's crooked? How many don't have no idea? So one Pamoga, he said, Prabhupada, devotee is simple. Prabhupada said he's crooked. He said, just like me. He said, I've tricked all of you into chanting Hare Krishna. He's tricked us. What's the trick?
No.
Yeah, the trick is, you do it all the time. You're the same way. Somebody walks in the door. What do you say to them? Just chant Hare Krishna. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to give anything up. Just stay in your position, chant Hare Krishna. That's all. No hard and fast rules. There's no regulating the rules. Just chant Hare Krishna. Be happy. You do that for a few days, and then they give you a book this big, all the things you have to do. And then they open their wallet, take all your money from you. So this is trickery, man. This is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. He tricks us. Prabhupada tricked us. He's so sweet, so nice, just engaging everyone, and then you get that hook in you. Prabhupada, from the beginning, he never asked anyone, those original devotees, to do something. He never asked. He used to just serve them day after day. They would come and listen. He would prepare the meal. He would serve out prasadam. He was just doing everything. Then one by one is this, Swamiji, is there something I can do? That was it. Finished. Hayagriva saw him, Prabhupada showing him all his translating work, Bhagavad Gita. Hayagriva tells us story. He said, he said, I'm an English professor. He said, I do editing. He said, is there anything I can do? Prabhupada gave him a stack, paper, A4 paper, every inch, every top to bottom, that one margin, both sides of the paper, handwritten. And he said, can you edit this? He said, yes, Swamiji. And Prabhupada said, okay. Then he opened up his trunk, and he had that. So he took it. So that was it. Then you're hooked. As soon as you do something for Krishna, you can't. He takes you. You can run and run and run, but you'll never get anywhere. Better just to stop trying. Stop trying to run away. Enjoy sense gratification, because that hook is in you. Devotional service. That's His mercy. That's the mercy of Krishna and Guru. That once they get you, they don't let you go. Prabhupada would say that. Never let a disciple. He said, I'll never let them again call you by your karmi name. He said, never again will you be called by that name. So that's our situation. So we're a little crooked. Prabhupada, when I was with him as a grahasta, he still wouldn't let me go. He just wanted me with him. Even I had a wife, I had a child. Again, they were very special times. We're not asking people to do these kind of things. Everyone should live all their duties, perform their duties very nicely. But, I was struggling traveling with Prabhupada as a grahasta. I talk about it a bit in there. But then when we got to Miami, Florida, and I was already thinking, in a few weeks I'm going to go back and be with my family, and Nanda Kumar will come and go to India with Prabhupada, because I didn't like India. He liked India, Nanda Kumar. And we figured Prabhupada would be with Nanda Kumar in India, and in the West I would do service. We arranged it, myself and Nanda Kumar. So then Prabhupada gets to Miami, and he's staying in a cottage, and open the door, we go inside, and Prabhupada's bags, I put them down, and Prabhupada's looking, big painting on the wall, Krishna and Arjuna on the chariot, Kurukshetra. And Arjuna's like this, just bewildered. So Prabhupada's looking, and he turns to me and says, I like this picture very much. I told you, I never knew Prabhupada was preaching. I was so bewildered that I didn't realize he was telling him. He was telling me. But he was telling me, not that it was a general audience. And unfortunately, I asked, this is why I said I never like to ask questions. So he said, I like this picture very much. So I said, why is that, Prabhupada? He said, this is very nice. He said, to see. Krishna, of course, is smiling. Prabhupada said, Krishna is always smiling. You don't see Krishna ever like bewildered. He's always happy. Krishna is the source of all bliss. So he's always blissful. But Arjuna, he's completely in anxiety. Why? What happened? And Krishna said, you have to kill your friends and your relatives. I want you to kill them. He said, they're already dead, but you've got to do it. You're going to have to kill them all. So Prabhupada's saying this to me. I didn't realize he was talking to me, telling me about my own engagement. So he said, Arjuna, of course, doesn't want to do it. He said, their family. He said, but this is Krishna consciousness. He said, if Krishna wants, you have to kill your relatives. He said, what to speak of leaving them? So now he's talking directly to me, and I never knew it until I first told the story some years ago. But he was telling me, you have to remain with me as my servant. It doesn't matter what you want to do. I want you to be my servant. But he was using this example, and he's saying, Krishna's telling Arjuna, you have to kill your relatives. And then he said, what to speak of leaving them? If Krishna wants, you have to kill them. Imagine that kind of surrender. So that's not, within our society. Don't let anyone go off doing anything crazy. Prabhupada, Krishna not asking us to do anything like that. No, he's even asking us to leave our family members. We have to take care of them. But at that time, Prabhupada was asking so many of his disciples to do out of the ordinary things because he had to, because he knew. He knew in a short time he was gone, and he carried everything with us. And then I realized when Prabhupada was present, devotees all around the world, some were following everything, some were following some of the things, some were following hardly any of the things or none of the things, but they were all able to somehow do service because Prabhupada accepted it. Whatever situation it came from, Prabhupada accepted everyone's service. So even if they were in different varieties of fallen states, because Prabhupada was here, he accepted their service. It could be GPCs, temple presidents, sannyasis, whatever it was. And you could just go on. But then I also realized the importance of following his instructions after he left, because then that becomes your association. That's how you keep the association, how important it is then to follow the instructions, to have the Vani, the instructions, because you can't maintain that same situation that we were able to while he was present. So we have to be extra careful. But this was his mercy, and it's still everything's coming through his mercy. So we'll stop here. This evening we'll be having a program, a little session, I think. We'll get to say goodbye to each other, but I'd like to personally at this time thank everyone for being here every day. And you will have, living here, you have many, many things to do. And it's been very nice. You could say as far as festivals, some are very, very big, but this is very, very sweet. It's not about numbers, it's about sweetness, and it's been very sweet here since I arrived, and I hope I get to come again next year. We have a festival again. So I'd like to thank you all personally for being so kind and taking care of me, all those who have been doing various things. And Hare Krishna, we'll see you all later through the day and this evening for Kirtan. Srila Prabhupada ki
Srutakirti Prabhu ki
Jai.